What's up, family? How y'all doing? So today, pretty much, we're gonna be talking about the pros and the cons of becoming a non-citizen national, right? And I want to be as detailed as possible because you got a lot of misperceptions or misconceptions, however you want to say it, about becoming a national. So most people will, advertise, oh, change your status. You in discharge cases, you can do anything you want. It's way more to it, right? Let me explain. So first, we're gonna talk about the cons. Like, what is the cons of becoming a state citizen, right? After you change your status, once you walking in this truth, and what all the things you should know and be aware of, right? Number one, when you become a state citizen, one of the cons is you have to do everything opposite. Whether that be open up a bank account, whether that be dealing with law enforcement, whether that be even your job. Because most people who will come to me, right, they will work and they will have professional occupational licenses, as such as like being a therapist, being say a state's attorney, say being a lawyer, say being a police officer. Now those particular jobs always contradict what they're trying to do with their life. So your job is actually contracting you with the state most of the time. And so people have to make a decision. Is it about the money in your career, or is it about your freedom? So you have to make that decision, right? And I'm not saying you got to make it overnight. I'm not saying that you got to rush and do it, but you do have to make that decision once you want to go over to being a state citizen. Or you can play lukewarm and you still can be in jurisdiction, but you can claim to be sovereign, and you would be like the other people who getting their windows smashed out and thrown out the car. Here go another thing. One of the other cons about being an entrepreneur, without about this whole national thing, what one of the other cons is being an entrepreneur. When you change your status over, it forces you to do everything yourself, even making money. So making money is no longer through a job anymore. Making money is not like you can go punch a clock or drive trucks, because most of those jobs provide you to be contracted in, whether you paying taxes, whether you getting a CDL to, that's licensed by the state in order to drive trucks. So a lot of people who are nationals have to force themselves over to being entrepreneurs, and that sucks. I'm gonna be honest with you, because most people don't have entrepreneur skills. A lot of people don't know about the business world. A lot of people don't know about everything, right? Another con of being a national, you have to be willing to go to jail. And some people are like, what? How is this legal? It's not about being legal or illegal. Everything has everything to do with jurisdiction. So it could come a time where an officer will try to overstep, whether he will detain you, whether he asks you a lot of questions, whether they'll try to throw you in jail. You have to be prepared for those things, right? If you want to change your status over. Another thing you have to be careful of when you have children. Another thing that you have to do is you have to reject your child from having a Social Security card, right? Because you really don't want your child to be subjected at an early age or having a contract with these people. You want your child to be operating in the private. You want your child to be free as possible, right? So you will have to tell the hospital, if you have your child in the hospital, if you're not having natural births at home or in-house birth or whatever the case might be, you're going to have to tell the hospital, hey, I don't want any vaccinations, or I don't want any Social Security numbers. I don't want my child to have any of those, right? If you choose to have a birth certificate, that's fine. A birth certificate is not a contract with the United States or the District of Columbia. It's just a certified birth that you was born in the state, right? What's another thing, right? As far as operating in the private, most people get insurance the normal way. They get a driver's license, and wherever their residence at, they'll put it on their insurance card. So if you're a national, you have to put your insurance card always as a rural-free address, because you never want to subject yourself. Another thing with being a national is if you live in a state that doesn't allow you to bear arms without a license, you will also have to consider not having a license with the state and bearing arms. It comes with risk if you don't know what you're talking about, or if you don't know how to respond to certain procedures when the police try to manipulate you into gaining jurisdiction over you. You might fall for the trap. But most of all, it's a lot of cons to it, and it's like, if you don't catch up to most of the stuff, you're gonna fall all the time. Like, anytime you dealing with law enforcement, you always gonna get them contract. Anytime you're dealing with your employer, you always going to fall for the okie doke, and they're going to be able to get some sort of contract out of you because you just don't know everything about it. And it's okay. It's really okay, but you just want to know the ins and outs. And it's take this from a national himself who had to learn the ins and outs. And it was easy to adapt to because I feel as though since I'm a felon, I had to learn how to operate in the private. I had to learn this stuff. So as I learned, I became great at it. I became very understanding at it. I became very manipulative at it. I became very creative at it. And I'm not talking about manipulative in a bad way. I'm talking about manipulative where I know how to do it to my own advantage. That's what I mean. Okay, here go the cons to being a national. When you become a national, a lot of things that United States citizens have to go through, you don't have to go through. As far as paying taxes, you don't have to go through that shit. You have people, oh, they just took taxes out of my check. Anyone, when your employer give you a document, you're going to see on the form, whether it be an I-9 form, it's going to be a little box that say tax exempt. You could just scratch that box out, and they're not going to take state or federal taxes out of your check. They make it your obligation to pay the IRS, but you don't have to pay the IRS. Here go another thing. Tickets, fines, right? So a lot of people are scared. So U.S. citizens park their car in the wrong spot, and they get a fine, right? Say if the fine $200, they have to pay that. But when we drive in private, unregistered vehicles, we don't have to worry about anything attacking us personally. They only attacking the VIN number, and the VIN number not even registered, and the VIN number is not even, you know, a part of the jurisdiction. So there's nothing they can do with those tickets. Okay, another thing. When we get stopped by the police, we don't have to necessarily worry about having marijuana on us, having guns on us, because if you operate in your private status and you don't have any contracts with the state, most guaranteed, best believe that you will be fully immune. You don't have to worry about going to jail. You don't have to worry about the processing in or processing out, especially if you read this stuff and you understand the material. Another thing, when you sovereign, you just a free man and woman. So everything you possibly want to do, you can do, as long as you're not hurting no one, you're not damaging no one's property, you're not bringing or causing harm to another individual. So if you want to carry guns, if you want to have marijuana, if you want to, travel without a license, you can do that. It's being a national. And remember this, it has nothing to do with status per se. It has everything to do with jurisdiction. So when a lot of people make stupid videos talking about, oh, here go this sovereign citizen, it doesn't matter if you claim to be a sovereign citizen. It has everything to do with jurisdiction. Read the state statutes. Acts subjecting persons to the jurisdiction of the court of state. So everything really a jurisdictional thing. So we're pretty much talking about when you in jurisdiction and when you operating outside of jurisdiction. So when you're a national, you are operating outside of jurisdiction. And trust me, this is your play field. This is your land. You can do whatever you want, whether it be adverse possession, whether it be carrying a firearm without a license, whether it be traveling and not have to worry about, you going to jail or whatever the case might be. You really can do anything and above. Even being an entrepreneur, there's so many loopholes. There's so much creativity in being a national. I want you to understand it, right? It's a difference between knowing and understanding. Understanding when you have a deep-rooted and deep interpretation of something, and you can manipulate it and manifest whatever you want out of it. Knowledge is having like a surface view of understanding. Like, oh yeah, I know this, I know that, but you don't understand it. You want to understand what it means to be a national, and you want to know how can it work for you. I'm out.